Getting a little bit higher. With every step I take, I'm getting good. Getting a little bit better. I'm climbing to the top. Never gonna stop. I'm getting good. Oh, shoot.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Oh Shoot. I'm your host, Cassidy Lynn, and welcome back to another episode. Happy Monday, or whatever day it is that you listen to the podcast. So we're here, we're back, and we're basically almost done with October at this point, which is crazy. I'm super excited because next week we have our Halloween episode. So you guys submitted some scary stories, and that's what we're going to read next episode. So if you're one that doesn't like that kind of stuff, next week you might want to skip that episode. But if you're into it, get into it. So my voice might be a little gravelly or lower, or I might sound more nasally. I am sick, so that's great. I'm getting over it, but it kind of has taken me out like the past week. So that's been great. 'Tis the season. So yeah. Besides that, I've got some fun life updates for you. I have a mix of business and personal. I haven't updated you guys on a ton lately. Just because I've been, putting out some fun episodes with guests and doing story episodes or whatever. So first update for you guys. This is a business update, but I figured a lot of you guys would be interested. I am reopening 2 of my courses. So if you guys don't know, I have 3 courses. One of my courses is always open, the wedding course, which I'm sure you guys have heard about. I have 2 other courses, and they are opening this week, I believe on Thursday, October 24th. And one of my courses is called Back to the Basics. My other course is called Find Your Influence. Back to the Basics is a basics photography course. Find Your Influence is more so about becoming a photography educator and stuff like that. So they're both really good courses, but I only open the doors every couple of months. This is the first time that Find Your Influence has reopened since I launched it. So super exciting. So keep your eyes open for that. Everything will be announced on my Instagram story. So yes, very exciting. Next week's the Halloween episode. And of course, I have to mention that the Oh Shoot Instagram officially hit 10,000 followers. So thank you guys. And I think a lot of that is because of you guys. So thank you guys for following along, for listening. It's really cool. And I remember when I hit 10K on my Cassidy Lynn account, that was just such a crazy experience. I was literally it's kind of just always shocking because it's there's no way that happened. Little old me, there's no way. So it's cool to see that now my podcast page has hit 10K. It's just really, really cool because I love the podcast, and I'm so glad that so many other people like the podcast as well. So thank you guys so much for following along on there. This past week, at this point, it'll be a week and a half ago. I was in Charleston and I spoke at an event. It's called Photo Camp. One of my friends, Alex, hosts it. I've run a couple of ads for them on here, so maybe you guys have heard about it, but I spoke, and actually Charlie spoke with me. This was the first time that we've ever spoke together, as a presentation type of thing. Obviously we do podcasts together, but this is really our first time actually doing a formal presentation where we go back and forth speaking. We're teaching people and stuff. So it was really cool. It was a lot of fun, and we ended up staying a little bit longer and just hanging out with everyone afterwards. It was a lot of fun, and low key, I feel I said this after the last one too, but it just makes me kind of want to host a retreat. And I know I've said this, but I'm definitely looking into it more seriously. Just because I have my own vision of something that I really want to do. So stay tuned for that, guys. let me know if you guys are, let's just keep this between us. Okay. So Oh Shoot listeners, if you are interested in some sort of retreat, comment on my YouTube video, my Oh Shoot YouTube video. So if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, go over to my YouTube page real quick, comment on this video and let me know that you would be interested. I personally am thinking like something destination, if you will, and definitely like wedding focused. So wedding and couple focused. So if that's something that you'd be interested in, comment and let me know, because I do think I would do something where maybe Oh Shoot listeners get like first pick, first access, if you will. So yes, comment, let me know. But it's something that I'm definitely highly considering. So let's keep going with my life updates. I have booked some very fun weddings for next year, which is so exciting. Every single year that I book travel weddings or whatever, I'm always so amazed because I love to just like go new places. So, of course, I booked a Cabo wedding for next year. Cabo is my second home. This will be my 4th time shooting there. So I'm an expert at this point, but yeah, I'm super excited to go back to Cabo. That's going to be in the springtime. And then I actually booked a wedding in St. Lucia. I've never been. I feel like it's kind of a popular destination spot for weddings, so we'll see. But yeah, I'm super excited. And obviously when these weddings happen, I'll vlog, I'll, let you guys in on everything that happens. I just feel like with travel weddings, it's hard because I with a place like St. Lucia, I've never been there before. So I do want to turn it into a vacation as well. So that's always a thing. I always book it longer than I need to because I want 3 or 4 days to just do my own thing. So yeah, that's really exciting. I'm so excited for that. Another little update for you guys. And I feel like this is something you probably can tell from my Instagram page, but lately I've just been loving shooting a little bit more of a cinematic style. And honestly, I feel like a lot of this has kind of stemmed from me just kind of following what my eye is naturally drawn towards and not just doing what I know looks good, doing what I know my clients would like, but just shooting in a way that I genuinely like and inspires me. And what's been cool about this is I'm able to do this in a case or a scenario where I don't have pressure. So it's not a paying client. I'm always doing these cinematic vibe shots when I'm shooting a model or a couple or someone that's it's not they're expecting anything from me. So I can really just have fun with it. So that's been really, really fun for me. And I feel like it's really re-sparked a, kind of just a little bit of creative itch in me. And when I do shoot a little bit more cinematically, it's fun because I'm able to look at more details. And that's something that I feel like I kind of lose when I'm in the hustle and bustle of an engagement session or whatever. I'm not always paying attention to those little tiny details that are so cute to capture. And because I've been doing a little bit more cinematic work, I've been really focusing more on a feeling in my photos, and really focusing more on composition, which has been really, really cool. So if you are someone who is feeling a little bit burnt out from photography, I would encourage you to book a model, find a couple, shoot something that's unpaid where your clients are not expecting anything from you, and just allow yourself to have the space to create in a way that's going to inspire you. For me, I feel like cinematic photos and cinematic shooting is really inspiring to me. I love capturing a feeling and I love kind of just playing with lighting and location. But sometimes when I have a paying client, I feel like I can't do that because I'm so focused on just making sure they're getting the shots that I know that they want. So it doesn't allow me as much creative space to mess around with new poses and trying new things. So that would be my encouragement to you guys. just try something different, try something new. I guarantee that is going to help re-spark a little bit of your creativity and help you not feel as burnt out. So moving on, I wanted to quickly do like a little social media segment for you guys. Just trying it out, a little new thing we're going to talk about. Because I love doing social media episodes, but I feel like when there are little tiny trends or things that I notice, like I want to do just like a quick little segment where we could talk about it real quick, but it's not like the whole episode. So I'm still workshopping a name for it right now. I just have it called social media segment. So call that what you want it. If you guys have names for it, let me know if you've got fun ideas. But my social media segment for you guys this week is specifically this is on TikTok. Okay. And I've noticed that on TikTok, there's a specific type of like carousel slide that's been doing really well for me. And it's doing like photos, but drawing on your photos and demonstrating like exactly how you've edited a photo. Just showcasing your editing process, because people are swiping, they're able to kind of, if you add like certain drawings, like if you show where you did a brush or you show like whatever, like a gradient you did on like a slide, and then when you swipe to the next photo, it shows like the actual edited version of that. That's been doing really well for me. I think that type of post is great for potential clients. People just being able to see what your process is like and like the detail that goes into your editing process. It's also great to just showcase your style in general. And they're really fun and easy to make. It's all you need is one photo, one raw, and you can make like a little slide from it. So I find when I'm editing previews from like a session or something, I've just been taking one photo from that little series and picking my favorite one and putting it on TikTok, showcasing how I edited, doing like a before and after. And it's been doing really well for me. So that's my social media segment for this week. So let's get into the episode, the meat of it, if you will. Today we're talking about photographer vocab. And the reason, I'll give you guys a little bit of backstory as to like why I wanted to talk about this. So when I was at photo camp, like a week and a half ago, I was noticing that, a lot of people are so creative and have a creative eye, which is so essential. But when it comes to some of those like technical details, I feel like some people just don't know, and that's okay. Like literally there's some stuff that we're going to talk about that I didn't know until I looked it up. But there are some vocab terms or things that people say that like just doesn't really make sense, or it's hard to know what it even means. But I want to like really sit down and explain to you guys what these words are. So then when you're, opening the settings menu on your camera, what certain things are. Or maybe if you're experiencing an issue, you're going to know how to fix it based on just some of these vocab terms. I do want to warn you guys, we've got a lot of vocab terms to cover, but we're going to get through it. But yeah, this is kind of like one of those episodes that I think is going to be a staple, probably an episode that you might want to listen back to because there's going to be a lot of terms. And I do feel like if you're a note taker, I know a lot of you guys listen while you edit or drive or whatever, so maybe just take mental notes. But if you are a note taker, this might be a good episode to take some notes on, especially with the terms that maybe you don't know. Okay, so let's just get right into it. Our first vocab word, I feel like this is like school. My first vocab word is bokeh. We're starting off kind of basic, kind of easy. We're not anything crazy, but bokeh. What is bokeh? Well, bokeh is essentially, let's back up here. Bokeh actually is a word that comes from the Japanese word. I believe it's bokeh. I could be wrong with pronouncing that. But essentially that means haze or blur. Blur is a little different from bokeh, but when we're talking about actual bokeh, blur is a good word to describe it. But blur in photography is a little bit different. The H at the end of bokeh, was actually introduced to help English speakers pronounce the word correctly. So the official definition of bokeh translates as the way the lens renders out of focus points of light. So usually bokeh is going to be small, soft, well, actually not even small, just small. I keep saying small. Bokeh is soft circles in the background of a photo. So bokeh is going to be out of focus points. So like a good example of this would be like if you are shooting with like string lights behind your subject, obviously your focus is going to be on your subject. Therefore, if your aperture is low enough or if you have a long enough lens, you're going to see bokeh in the background. It's like those soft little, sometimes they're even like hexagon shape or like octagon shape. And they're circles, very, very soft circles that kind of like represent different light sources in the background or whatever. Bokeh can be a lot of things. I find that if I'm shooting in like trees, like through trees and there's like sun coming through backlit, that's when you get a lot of that like bokeh, a lot of those circles. So essentially bokeh is, it's like the lack of focus in the background. And it's like those little shapes that come as a result of that. That's what bokeh is. So great start. Speaking of lighting, our next term is ambient light. This is something that I do feel is pretty important to know and learn about because I think it's going to be helpful, especially if you shoot like indoors. So ambient light is lighting that is already present in a scene. So basically you're not using flash, you haven't set up any lights. It's basically known as general or mood lighting. It's the primary source of light in a room that creates an overall glow or a comfortable level of brightness. This is usually soft and can be achieved by a variety of light fixtures such as ceiling lights, wall sconces, floor lamps, table lamps, recessed ceiling lights, etc. But basically ambient light is the lighting in a photography sense. Ambient light is the light that's already present in a room when you show up. It's nothing that you've added. So this definition of like creating a level of glow or comfortableness, that is just in general when you are creating a room or creating a space. You know, you want lamps, you want like different lighting, you want candles, you want stuff to just make the room feel comfortable and just like make it feel cozy. That's what ambient light is essentially used for. But in photography, ambient light then is walking into a room and realizing, okay, what lamps are on, what chandeliers are on, do we have like overhead lighting, you know, realizing all of that. So ambient light can also come from natural sources like windows and skylights. So that's something important to note as well. It can literally just be natural light too. So ambient lighting, that's basically just walking into a room and just assessing what does the lighting look like right now? Do I have to add any light? Like, how does it look in camera? Where is my light coming from? Is it from this lamp? Is it from the window? You know, and just figuring out how to work with it from there. So next we're going to talk about some different modes, camera modes. So we first are going to talk about aperture priority mode. Now, when I was first starting photography, I jumped right into manual mode. I never experimented with all the different modes that you can set your camera in. There's other modes besides aperture priority mode. I'm pretty sure there's like shutter priority. I don't know the other ones, but just talking about aperture priority mode on your camera, there's most likely going to be a dial like right on the top of your camera by the viewfinder. And there's going to be an M, there's going to be an A. I don't know like the other ones. There might be like a little recording camera on there. There might be like 1, 2, 3. Basically, aperture priority mode is going to be that A. Actually, no, I'm lying. Because A is going to be automatic. So I actually don't know what the abbreviation would be for aperture priority mode on your dial, but it's on your dial somewhere. Aperture priority mode is a camera setting that lets you choose an aperture, so an f-stop, and the camera is going to select the correct shutter speed to match it. The camera's light meter is going to measure the lighting conditions and automatically choose the shutter speed for proper exposure. So basically what you're doing, exactly how it sounds, you are prioritizing the aperture. So this is honestly a good step if you're trying to get into manual mode, because aperture priority mode allows you to still have the stylistic freedom of choosing your aperture, which in my opinion, I think aperture is one of the biggest stylistic things while you're shooting as far as your camera settings go. So it's important to choose your aperture. So if there's one automatic mode I would recommend, I would say it would be aperture priority. But leading into my next vocab term is actually manual mode. So just like aperture priority mode, manual mode can be found on the dial right on top of your camera. Manual mode on a camera gives the photographer full control over the camera's settings, including aperture, shutter speed, ISO, white balance. In this mode, the camera does not automatically adjust settings. Manual mode is considered the most basic and powerful way to use a camera. It allows for more creative freedom and customization, which is essential for specific types of photography. So, manual mode, very important. I shoot in manual. A lot of people that I know, basically everyone I know, shoots in manual. So, moving on, another mode we're going to talk about. And this mode is maybe something you know about, but you don't know the name for it. Drive mode. Drive mode is a camera setting that controls how and when a camera takes pictures. So there's a few different types of drive modes depending on your camera, but most cameras have all these different drive modes. First, we have single shot. So basically your camera takes one picture each time the shutter button is pressed. This is a great mode to be in if you would like to mimic a film camera. If you struggle with taking too many photos, being in single shot drive mode is going to help you have that discipline to be able to not take too many photos and really focus on what are you shooting? Am I being intentional with my shots? Another drive mode is continuous mode. So this is going to take multiple pictures in a quick succession while the shutter button is being held down. So this is where we start to have some issues with overshooters, because within my camera, my Sony, the drive mode, we have a continuous drive mode, but there's different speeds to it. So I have like a low, a medium, or like mid, high, and then high plus. And high plus is like taking way too many photos. Okay. Like that's like if you're, I don't even know, like a football photographer or someone that is shooting super fast paced stuff. So this can get dangerous. And this is when a lot of people become overshooters because they are just comfortable with one of these higher drive modes. So continuous drive mode. Other drive modes that are just important to mention, we have self-timer drive mode. So basically it's going to take a picture after a set amount of time. And I think that's basically it. There is one drive mode called automatic exposure bracketing. It's going to take multiple pictures with different exposure settings. I've never used this drive mode before, but I have heard this can be helpful for like real estate photography. Essentially what it can do is it can expose for like an outside window. And then as it keeps taking pictures, it'll keep getting brighter and then it'll expose for the room. So that can allow you to, you know, expose for outside and be able to show the view in a room, but also be able to show the room at the same time. So those are the different drive modes. Personally, I've noticed that different camera brands have like different names for drive modes, but basically the concept is the same. So depending on what camera you have, your drive mode could be called something different or whatever. On a Sony camera, drive mode can be changed in your, like, when you hit the FN button and it's just like the quick menu that pops up on your screen. It's usually right there. On my A9 II, the drive mode is actually on like a dial on top of the camera as well. So it just kind of depends on the camera that you have. So next we're going to talk about dynamic range, which as a photographer is not something that I really ever knew about, but this is a term I have heard before. So this is something that I learned in researching this episode. So dynamic range describes the ratio between the brightest and darkest parts of an image from pure black to the brightest white. The best digital cameras capture only half as much range as the human eye. This most commonly comes into play for sunset and sunrise. So if you think about when you shoot at sunset, it's either like I can expose my subjects perfectly or I can expose my sky perfectly, but it's hard to get the perfect balance of both. If you've ever had to take a picture on a bright sunny day, chances are pretty high that you would have lost detail, possibly in shadows or in the highlights, perhaps even in both. This is not an exposure problem on your part. It's most likely a limitation of the dynamic range on your camera. Almost all cameras will come up against this problem at some time. So this is going to be something that is important in having a high quality camera, because that means you will have a better dynamic range if you have like a better quality camera. And that is important. Like it is important for you to be able to capture, as much dark and light as you can. It's just one of those things that is very important, especially when it comes to editing and all of that. So dynamic range, there you have it. Learned something new today.
The only thing worse than taking too many photos while you're shooting is getting home and then having to edit all of them. Here's some ways to speed up your editing workflow without losing any quality in your work. Today, I want to introduce Aftershoot Edits 2.0. You can experience the most consistent edits straight out of Aftershoot. One of my favorite things about Aftershoot is their upgraded white balance and exposure AI models. Even if your lighting varies during your session and you have a lot of drastic changes, Aftershoot's able to instantly fix any blown out highlights, murky shadows, and overall, this feature allows you to have balanced photos no matter what your lighting conditions were. Another way to speed up your editing workflow is by using AI masking in Aftershoot Edits 2.0. This feature allows you to selectively edit your images through masking. With AI masking, Aftershoot can automatically select your subjects and adjust them to really make them pop in your image. Another great way to save time while you're editing is to use Aftershoot's advanced cropping and straightening. This tool allows you to customize and select any aspect ratio, and it even automatically crops in your photos so that the focus is more on your subject. It also can automatically straighten your photo, which is going to save you so much time in the long run. Say goodbye to spending way too much time editing your photos and use Aftershoot Edits 2.0. Aftershoot has an exclusive offer for all Oshoot listeners, so go to the link in the description of this episode to find out more. Thank you guys so much for watching, and now back to the show.
Okay, next we're talking about a hot shoe. A hot shoe is a term that I love to use. I learned this term about 2 years ago and I love it. A hot shoe is a metal bracket on top of a camera. So on your camera, it's like that metal piece that your flash goes into if you use a flash. This allows you to attach and communicate with accessories like flashes, microphones, and LED lights. It's an electrical contact point that completes a connection between the camera and the accessory. Hot shoes are commonly found on DSLR or digital cameras. They're different from a cold shoe, which are purely mechanical connections without electronic communication. So I've never heard of a cold shoe before. I still don't 100% know if that's something that anyone actually has still. I guess like a cold shoe would be just like a mount, but it wouldn't actually connect to your camera. You'd have to find a way to connect it to your camera. Like maybe a tripod mount, maybe that's a cold shoe. I'm not 100% sure. But hot shoe, it's that connection point right on top of your camera. And it actually is pretty important that with hot shoes, you have like a hot shoe cover or protector, because it is like an exposed like electronic piece. Like it's a very important electronic contact point on your camera. It's very sensitive and it should be covered. So that's something that I learned. One of my hot shoes it was with a camera that I don't use anymore, but it's basically toast because I didn't cover it and it got wet. So yeah, that's great. Okay, next we're going to talk about light meters. So a light meter is also known as an exposure meter. It's a device that measures the amount of light and helps photographers determine the correct shutter speed or f-stop for a given scene. I find that a lot of people don't know what a light meter is. They don't even know that their camera has it, but it is such an important tool, especially if you're someone that is learning your manual camera settings and you're learning manual mode. It's so key, so important. So light meters are useful in photography because they help photographers capture the right image tone and avoid over or under exposure. They can be especially helpful in situations with difficult lighting or subject matter, such as scenes with high contrast areas or white snow. The meter will range from -2 to +2. And ideally for me, I like to keep my exposure not right at 0 on the light meter. I'm usually around like -0.5. I do like my photos a little bit underexposed, especially if I'm shooting at like sunset or something like that. But a light meter is so helpful. Like I said, if you're learning your camera settings, or I don't know, if you're working with a second shooter who just like maybe is struggling with camera settings, you can point them to the light meter. And for me, my light meter is I can only see it on my viewfinder. So I have to like look through my viewfinder. It's always like at the very bottom of your viewfinder. I'm pretty sure every camera has it. It's literally just like a meter that is notched and it goes from -2 to +2. I also think on my camera, I can switch my like view mode and go through like different, you know, how like on your screen, you could see like the level and you can like have a grid put up or whatever. I'm pretty sure the light meter is one of the options as well. So there we have it, light meter. Okay, next is back button focus. This might not be something that is as popular as it used to be with DSLR cameras, but I do think it's popular enough that it's a term we need to address. So back button focus is a camera feature that allows photographers to reassign the autofocus function from the shutter button to a different button on the back of the camera. This button is usually called AF on and is located on the side of the camera where the shutter release button is. So if you are right-handed and the shutter button's on the right-hand side, it's going to be basically where your thumb, kind of like the top right corner, very close to your shutter button, but it's going to be on the back of the camera. And you know, let's take a minute. Do they have left-handed cameras? I don't think they do. So do left-handed photographers just, it's like, sucks to suck. Wait, that is crazy. I need to look this up because I've had this thought, but like I've never actually like looked it up before. Okay. Okay, so it says yes, Sony has left-handed versions of some of their cameras, including the A7R5 and the Sony A7L5. Okay, but it sounds like you can't just get any camera you want in a left-handed camera. Huh. It also says that Sony did an April Fool's joke with left-handed cameras, so that's funny. Okay, wait. Do they actually? Okay, I guess we'll never know. Google AI Google AI, like the AI overview when you Google stuff, I think sometimes it gets a little confused. So anyway, back to back button focus. With back button focus, the photographer's thumb can be used to autofocus while their index finger is on the shutter release button to take the photo. This can be preferred by some people. I shot with someone like a month ago who used it. But I find that, you know, it can be a little awkward. Like the way you hold your camera, it's a little awkward. Like doing your thumb and doing your index finger, it just kind of feels like a lot happening when it could just very easily just be like half hold the shutter and then full press. Like for me, I just find that that's easier. But I think basically every single camera can be customized to do that back button focus if that's something that would be interesting to you, if that's something that you want to look into. But I find that I feel like it was really popular with like DSLR cameras, but now because mirrorless cameras just really track subjects and like really, make it pretty easy to just, they find the focus for you. You don't really need back button focus as much, but that's just me. Okay, moving on. We have Kelvin. So Kelvin is a scale that's used to measure the color temperature of light and adjust a camera's white balance. So white balance is basically like how warm your camera takes a picture or how cold. The Kelvin scale measures the temperature of light in degrees of Kelvin, or Kelvin with it. Sorry, it's not Kelvin, it's Kelvin. Also abbreviated as just a K. The color of a burning carbon at a given temperature corresponds to the Kelvin temperature. So a lower Kelvin value represents warmer colors, like orange and yellow, while a higher Kelvin value represents cooler colors, like blue and white. So essentially, a lower Kelvin number, the warmer your photo is going to be. What's the purpose of Kelvin? Different light sources like indoor lighting, the sun, or shade have different color temperatures. This can cause color casts in photos, like a blue tint on a cloudy day or a warm glow at sunrise or sunset. Photographers use Kelvin to adjust the white balance of their camera to match the color temperature of the room and achieve more natural looking photos. So, essentially, it's a manual way to perfectly pick your color temperature of your photos before, you take the photo, which ultimately will help you with editing. It might, unless you're someone that forgets that you set your Kelvin at something and your photos are really, really warm, and then you have to go in Lightroom and like lower it. So, that's what Kelvin is. I do feel like Kelvin is a little bit of personal preference, and I don't know how much it's necessary because you can change the temperature in Lightroom afterwards. But I do feel like having a Kelvin that, like, if you normally like a little bit warmer of photos, having a Kelvin that's a little bit warmer is going to help you be able to picture the end result in that raw better, which might help some people while they're shooting. Okay, next we have metadata. So photo metadata is a set of data that describes a photograph and is stored with the image. It can include information such as technical data, so the camera lens and the camera that was used, shooting settings, the image's size, weight, compression type, etc. It also includes descriptive data, so the image's content. It can include a title, caption, keywords, and themes. Rights data, so metadata also includes the image's copyright information, creator and usage rights, location data, the date, time, and the location that the photo was taken. This data can actually be edited in Lightroom Classic in the library tab. So I found that with my images, it's super easy to go and select like all my images and change all the metadata at the same time for all of them. Just, renaming things to just be like Michigan wedding photographer, adding in some keywords, adding in whatever, into the metadata of the photo, and also like adding my name in there so that I get credit if someone does take the photo. You know what I mean? So metadata is useful for photographers because it helps them organize, search, and protect their images. It can also help buyers find photos easily by using keywords they're likely to use. So that is metadata. Next, we have APS-C. So this is abbreviated as APS-C. Essentially, this is a cropped sensor camera. Because APS-C sensors are smaller than the standard 35 millimeter film format. I just stuttered, so let me try that again. Smaller than the 35 millimeter standard film format, devices with APS-C sensors are known as cropped frame sensors or cropped frame cameras. These cameras are usually cheaper as well. So APS-C is cropped more. So if you were standing next to someone who had the same lens on as you, but you have a crop sensor camera and they don't, and they have a full frame sensor, you're going to have to stand further back from them to get the same shot as someone shooting on full frame. So essentially a crop sensor camera is a little bit more cropped in. So, a 50 millimeter might actually be more like a 70 millimeter or something like that. So APS-C refers to the camera's sensor. Next, we're talking about continuous focus. So continuous focus is also abbreviated as AF-C. Continuous focus is a mode that allows your camera to continuously track and adjust the focus of the lens based on the movement of your subject or the area you select. It's useful when you want to capture a dynamic or unpredictable subject, such as a sports event, wildlife scene, a child playing, etc. So continuous focus, that's what I always use on my camera. But I will say sometimes my camera bumps into single shot focus, which is totally different. And when I'm shooting with single shot focus, I know right away that I'm in it because you can totally tell the difference. Single shot focus is also abbreviated as AF-S. It's an autofocus mode that operates when the shutter button is pressed halfway down. Once the subject is in focus, the focus is locked. It's suitable for shooting motionless subjects such as landscapes or snapshots. So essentially, for someone that's shooting people that is trying to capture movement, continuous focus is 100% what I'm going to be using all the time. Single shot focus, my shots are always out of focus because my couples are running around. Like it's just not ideal if you're trying to track someone. Next we have EFV, which stands for electronic viewfinder. An electronic viewfinder is a feature on a mirrorless camera that displays an image on a small screen for the photographer to look through while composing a shot. Advantages of having or using an electronic viewfinder. 1, you can see the effects of your camera settings. You can see how your image will look before taking your shot by adjusting the ISO, exposure, and white balance. You can also see the shot after it's taken. So you can review your shot without moving your eye away from the viewfinder, which allows you to see exactly the photo that you just took, which can be really helpful. It also helps you see in low light. So electronic viewfinders can help you focus and preview the exposure in low light conditions through the viewfinder, which is so helpful. You can see the image in real time. So the preview on an electronic viewfinder updates in real time as you move the camera or you adjust the camera settings, which is so nice. And you can see the image from the sensor. So what you see through the electronic viewfinder is going to be exactly what the camera's sensor is seeing as well. So it's going to be the most accurate depiction of what you are taking a photo of. Even if you like to use the back of the screen, you still have glares and it's not going to be exactly like, there are external factors. Obviously, like what's on the back of your screen is what you're taking a picture of. And that's exactly, it's the same thing. But when you're using the back of the screen, sometimes you have a glare. Sometimes it's like not super bright. It's hard to see. So by putting your eye in that electronic viewfinder, you're basically able to see so clearly exactly what you're taking a picture of. So it's super nice. It's only available on mirrorless cameras. So next we have TTL mode. So we've talked about this before on the podcast. So if you are new here, welcome. This is something we have talked about. So that's why I'm going to talk about it briefly. TTL mode, or as it is known, through the lens mode, so that's what TTL stands for, is a camera setting that automatically adjusts the flash power based on the amount of light coming through the lens. So it's basically the auto setting for a flash, and this is useful when your subject is moving or constantly changing. So if you're using a flash, you can use a manual mode on your flash where you change all the settings and get it perfectly how you want. For me, I've found that TTL mode works great. Next, we have a few different types of lenses. First, we have a macro lens. So a macro lens is a camera lens designed for close-up photography that can take sharp images of small objects. These lenses typically have a focus distance of 12 inches or less. I don't know if you guys have ever shot on just a normal lens, not a macro lens, and try to take a close-up picture of something, and you literally can't because your lens just cannot handle. It just cannot do that. That's what a macro lens would be for. I've thought about having one of these for like detail shots of, like a wedding ring or whatever. I've found that at this point in time, I don't think it's necessary to have an extra lens with me on a wedding day just for that. But if you do product photography, something like that, macro lens would definitely be helpful. Next, we have a prime lens. So a prime lens is a camera lens with a fixed focal length that cannot be changed. Prime lenses are often smaller and lighter than zoom lenses, and they can be faster because they have wide apertures. They're suitable for many different types of photography, including portraits, landscapes, and low light photography. So a prime lens, common prime lenses are the 35 millimeter, the 50 millimeter, the 85 millimeter. You're basically not able to zoom or anything like that, but because you have the fixed focal length, the lens is able to have a lower aperture. If you have purchased a lens that has a lower aperture, it's able to go all the way down to, some lenses go down to f1.2. So that can be nice if you're shooting low light or whatever. Next, we have a telephoto lens. So a telephoto lens is a camera lens that's designed to magnify distant subjects and make them appear closer. A telephoto lens can be used in many different types of photography, such as sports, wildlife, and landscape photography. And typically, telephoto lenses are zoom lenses. So my 70 to 200 big, massive dad lens is going to be a telephoto lens. The last lens, this is a lens that I feel like a lot of you might not know about. And the only reason I know about it is because one of my friends had one, and it's called a tilt shift lens. So a tilt shift lens is a camera lens that you can change the position of the lens in relation to the camera's sensor, allowing photographers to control the perspective and depth of field of their images. A tilt shift lens, also called a perspective control lens, changes the position of a lens in relation to a camera's image sensor when the lens tilts so that it's no longer parallel to the camera's image sensor. It shifts the plane of focus and alters the depth of field. So a tilt shift lens actually has like hinges on it. So you can physically tilt this lens. So it's interesting because you can change the perspective, but you can also it'll blur whole areas of the photo, which can be a really cool effect on your image. So without visually showing you guys, it's hard. So maybe just look up what a tilt shift lens looks like and some photos you can take with it. Cause basically it looks like you can kind of blur an entire side of the photo. It's really cool. I do feel like it's a little bit old school, but it's really fun if you like messing around with different creative, different creative things in your work. Okay. We've got 3 more terms. You guys hang in there. We're almost done. Noise. This is a very important photography term that everybody needs to know. Noise in photography can be defined as a random variation in the image signal. Noise can be caused by a number of factors, including poor lighting conditions, high ISO settings, long exposure times, and heat. Noise can also be introduced into an image during the editing process. There are 2 types of noise in photography. One is a luminance noise and one is color noise. Luminance noise is going to appear as grainy black and white spots in an image. Color noise appears as colorful dots or pixels. Both types of noise can be distracting and can make an image appear unclean. So essentially, if your ISO is way too high, you're going to start to see noise in your image. Noise can also happen because of other things too. They said heat, what else? Long exposure times, etc. So with noise, essentially noise can kind of ruin your photo. Once you have noise, it's hard to come back from that. With the exception of Lightroom's new AI noise reduction tool, it's a game changer. It's available in Lightroom and I use it all the time. And now I'm not afraid to really bump up my ISO because I know if I do and I have too much noise, there's a way to fix it where it looks very natural. So that's a very important, very, very important thing in photography to know. Two last terms for you. This term, I don't know if a lot of you will know either, the term tether. So tethering in photography refers to the process of connecting a camera to a computer or another device in real time. By shooting tethered, photographers can streamline their workflow by instantly reviewing images on a larger screen. You can make adjustments on the fly. You can share previews with clients. This is very popular in studio or fashion photography. So I think I mentioned in a previous, oh my gosh, I can't talk, guys. I think I mentioned in a previous episode that I used to shoot tethered for yearbook photos. And the reason that I would do this is so basically right away when I would take the image, it would go right into Lightroom and my client could see what they looked like if they wanted to redo it or anything like that. So it's super important to just know what works for your field. If you're in a studio, like tethering is 100% an option because you're not moving that much. You're not getting high angles, low angles. You're kind of shooting all the same thing because you're kind of limited in what you're shooting. So there are like tethering devices. You could do literally just a cable, but usually like a tethering device will send the images right to your camera and allow you to really just like see the previews, see how you did, whatever. So it's nice if you do, studio work or whatever. Okay. Our last term for today is banding. Banding is also known as posterization, which I did not know that, is a common issue in digital images that occurs when colors transition abruptly instead of gradually. It can appear as harsh lines or stripes in a photo, especially in areas with large, solid colors like the sky. And you might be like, okay, but why does it happen? Why does banding occur? Well, I'm going to tell you. Banding might occur, one, because of insufficient information. When there isn't enough information to display in tonal values in a photo, the gradient can appear less smooth. So like an open sky or something like that. Low bit depth. When images are taken or displayed in low bit depth, they don't have enough resources to show the number of shades of color needed for a smooth transition. Compression. When an image is compressed to reduce its size, some colors are removed, which can affect the gradual transition of color. So this is mainly talking about color, but this last point is the main one that I've experienced. LED lighting and an electronic shutter. When using a mirrorless camera with LED lighting and an electronic shutter at the same time, the differences between the frequency of the LED lights and the shutter's reading speed can cause banding. So this is something I've experienced specifically at weddings where I have my quiet shutter on, which is my electronic shutter. I pop inside, maybe there's string lights or whatever, and there's LED lighting. This is why you always want to take a test shot because like sometimes you will get stripes in your photos. And when you get banding, there's almost nothing you can do to fix it in post. It's really crazy. So to fix banding, you can try one, slowing down your shutter speed so the sensor is exposed for a longer period of time. This is what I found to be really helpful with banding. I think it's a multiple of 60 is what you try to do with most LED lights. So I try to hit a multiple of 60 in my shutter speed so that the light is firing at the same time as my camera taking the picture. Switching to a mechanical shutter. This is a great way to avoid banding. This is usually what I do if I have banding. This is usually step one. Adjusting your shutter speed because certain artificial lights work better with certain shutter speeds. So like I said, adjust your shutter speed, see what works, what shutter speed has the least banding or looks, the most normal. And obviously taking a test shot is a great way to reduce banding because if you take a test shot, then you're going to be able to see the banding. You're going to be able to see, what's happening there. So, wow. All the vocab turns this episode. I also feel like I've been saying really, really weird things. Like I literally just said vocab turns. Like, so sorry. I think this sickness is really getting to me. I think I'm saying things that just don't like the vowels are not voweling. Like the consonants are not consonanting. So I'm sorry, but thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode. Like I said, don't forget to comment if you want to see a retreat from me. Comment on my YouTube channel, please. Let's chat about it. I think that's it for this week, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, and I'll see you next week for another episode. Bye.